When people talk about bodybuilding and substances to boost physique, steroids are usually the first thing that comes to mind. But there's a dangerous trio every athlete should know about: T3, diuretics, and insulin. In this video, we're zeroing in on insulin and why it might be one of the riskiest choices out there, even though it's fairly popular among some pro athletes. Used the wrong way, it can seriously mess you up, and no, that's not an exaggeration. Insulin, for those who don't know, is a hormone produced by the pancreas that helps regulate blood sugar levels. In the bodybuilding world, it's not being used to treat diabetes, but as a way to try to maximize nutrient absorption and muscle growth. But the real question is, does it actually work? And more importantly, at what cost? Right off the bat, let's get one thing clear. This isn't a supplement or some easy-to-use enhancer. We're talking about a hormone that, if used incorrectly, can literally kill you. That's one reason it's considered one of the most dangerous substances in bodybuilding. Alongside T3, a thyroid hormone, and diuretics, which flush water from the body, insulin makes up a high-risk trio. So why do athletes still use it? The answer is both simple and disturbing. Fast results. The promise of rapid gains, better nutrient absorption, and anabolic potential tempts a lot of people into cutting corners. And often, those choices are made without proper medical supervision, or worse, based on internet forums and random YouTube videos. Ever stop to think about what's really behind these decisions? Is it really worth risking your health just to gain an extra inch on your arms? A lot of bodybuilders who go down this path end up paying a huge price, not just physically, but in long-term quality of life too. That needs to be said loud and clear. That's why this video isn't just about sharing info, it's a warning. We're going to break down the main reasons why insulin gets so much attention in the bodybuilding world, how it actually works in the body, and what science and athlete experiences have to say about it. Of course, we're also going to talk about the serious dangers involved. So, if you work out, plan to compete, or are just curious about this world, stick around till the end. Ever heard of someone using insulin to bulk up? What do they tell you? Drop your story in the comments. Grab your pre-workout, and let's dive in. Now, you might be wondering why some bodybuilders would even consider using insulin, knowing how dangerous it is. The answer lies in how their bodies function at extreme levels. When someone reaches insane levels of muscle mass and food intake, their metabolism shifts. A lot of pro athletes eat insane amounts of food. Think 6,000, 7,000, even 8,000 calories a day. The problem is, even with all that food, the body can't always process it efficiently. Over time, many develop a condition known as peripheral insulin resistance. That means their cells stop responding properly to the insulin their body naturally produces, and a chunk of the nutrients just go to waste. That's where external insulin comes in. The goal isn't to build muscle directly with it. Insulin on its own doesn't grow muscle. What it does is help shuttle all those excess nutrients, especially glucose and amino acids, into the cells. It's a way of salvaging part of the diet that would otherwise be wasted. But listen up, this is a razor's edge kind of thing. The dose, the timing, the food pairings, everything needs to be dialed in perfectly. One misstep, and you could end up with severe hypoglycemia, a sudden blood sugar crash that can knock you out cold, or even kill you. Yes, if that's serious. And unfortunately, a lot of people think they can figure it all out by watching a few videos online. This kind of use also exposes one of the most uncomfortable truths about high-level bodybuilding. At a certain point, the human body just starts to break down under the pressure. The digestive system, metabolism, everything begins to show signs of wear and tear. And to keep growing, athletes start turning to strategies that push the body past its natural limits, even if that means taking serious risks. Of course, not every athlete goes down that path. Plenty of people choose safer alternatives or stick with natural methods. But those who turn to insulin usually do it because they feel like their body isn't responding like it used to. It becomes a last resort, or at least that's what it should be, not some magic trick for beginners. A lot of people think insulin is an anabolic steroid, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Even though some athletes use it for aesthetic goals, insulin doesn't build muscle the way anabolic steroids do. In other words, Injecting insulin won't automatically make you stronger or more muscular. That's a myth that needs busting. If it were that easy, every person with type 1 diabetes who takes insulin every day would look like a bodybuilder. But in reality, it's the opposite. Many of them struggle with weight management, develop obesity, and face complications like high blood pressure, heart attacks, and even strokes. So why is there so much confusion? Simple. Insulin helps transport nutrients, which can support muscle growth, but only when paired with intense training, a tightly controlled diet, and usually other substances. It's a supporting player, never the main driver of gains. This confusion is made worse by the flood of shallow info on social media. You've got people making it seem like insulin is some kind of shortcut to get jacked without putting in the work. And that's dangerous. It pushes a lot of young guys to try it without having any clue how it really works or being ready to handle the risks. It's important to stress. Insulin use outside of a clinical setting was never designed for healthy people. Its main job is to treat diseases like diabetes, not to sculpt your physique. When used without medical need, it can throw your blood sugar way out of balance, putting your life at risk, all for the sake of looking a certain way. Another key point: while steroids like testosterone boost protein synthesis and actively promote muscle growth, insulin just makes nutrient uptake more efficient. On its own, without hardcore training and a high-calorie diet, it doesn't do much. It's like having a key with no door. It only works in a very specific setup. One of the most overlooked effects of insulin in bodybuilding is water retention. A lot of people start using it and notice their weight going up fast. But is that muscle? Not necessarily. Most of the time, it's an illusion, and what the mirror shows is hard to ignore. Bloating. Not full, pumped muscles, but edema. That's fluid buildup in your tissues. Insulin causes the kidneys to retain sodium, which leads the body to hold onto more water. In fact, this effect is even stronger than what's caused by aldosterone, another hormone that controls water and salt balance. That means your body starts holding way more water than normal, leaving you looking puffy, heavy, and honestly, kind of uncomfortable. This kind of bloating can fool even seasoned lifters. When a bodybuilder steps on the scale and sees an extra 5 or 6 pounds show up in just a few days, it's easy to think the protocol is working. But what's really happening is a buildup of extracellular fluid, something that brings zero aesthetic benefit and actually works against muscle definition. And this water retention isn't just a cosmetic issue. It can raise blood pressure, put strain on the kidneys, and leave you looking far from the dry, shredded physique you're aiming for. In some cases, your face looks visibly swollen, joints start aching, and your performance in the gym actually takes a hit. That's the classic getting bigger without growing scenario. This illusion of progress often leads athletes to crank up the dose, convinced they're on the right path, when in reality they're just holding water, overloading their body, and putting themselves at risk. Not to mention the potential heart and kidney issues that come from this kind of electrolyte imbalance. And here's another key point. This kind of bloating is tough to fix, even with diuretics. But diuretics themselves are already one of the top 3 most dangerous substances in bodybuilding. So combining them with insulin is like playing with a time bomb. You're trying to fix one risky side effect with another risky drug. And that's a slippery slope that rarely ends well. There's also an obsession in bodybuilding that's leading a lot of athletes off track: the number on the scale. More specifically, the so-called triple-digit mindset, the goal of weighing over 100 kilos, around 220 pounds. For many, hitting that number feels like a trophy, a badge of honor. But does it really mean anything? Does more weight automatically mean better quality? Truth is, that number alone tells you very little about someone's physique. 2 athletes can weigh the same, but have completely different body compositions. One might be packed with dense, dry, well-distributed muscle. The other could be carrying extra fat, holding water, and looking soft. And yet, both will claim to be in shape just because the scale says 100 plus. This obsession with weight brings day-to-day issues that nobody talks about. Clothes stop fitting. Finding chairs that don't feel like a squeeze is a challenge. Getting into regular cars or flying becomes uncomfortable. Then there's the joint stress and the hit to heart health. In many cases, bodybuilding shifts from a pursuit of aesthetics to a battle against your own body. A lot of athletes lose themselves on this road, trading quality for quantity, symmetry for sheer size, functionality for vanity. And here's the ironic part. The heaviest bodybuilders aren't always the ones who win. Judges reward conditioning, proportion, stage presence. Being too heavy can actually backfire, making you look soft and less defined under the lights. The scale obsession also creates mental pressure. Athletes wake up, step on the scale, and if the number's lower than yesterday, the whole day feels ruined. That triggers anxiety, drastic diet changes, and reckless use of substances to make up for the loss. What was supposed to be a journey of progress turns into a loop of frustration and self-sabotage. And when it comes to insulin, there's no shortage of myths and bad advice floating around. In the amateur scene, tons of people say they're using it, but very few actually know what they're doing. Some don't even use it at all. They just say they do to look more hardcore or to excuse a lack of results. The truth may sting, but it needs to be said, there's a lot of BS in this space. It's super common to hear someone say, "I'm on insulin," or "I'm running a heavy protocol," when in reality, they're barely training, eating all wrong, and expecting some miracle from a drug. Others might actually be using it, but without the slightest clue about timing, dosage, or nutrition. That's when insulin becomes a ticking time bomb, with very real risks of severe hypoglycemia, coma, or even death. The more drugs someone uses, the more likely their physique is actually going to get worse. Sounds backwards, but it's the truth. A lot of athletes, especially beginners, think more is always better. But the body has limits, and pushing past them without proper planning leads to serious side effects. When insulin is overused or misused, the visual impact is usually negative. Skin quality drops, waistlines get thicker, muscle shape becomes unbalanced, and definition vanishes. Instead of a clean, dense physique, what you get is something bloated, watery, and fake-looking. And then there's the mental side of things. Reckless use of insulin and other drugs can lead to psychological dependency. The athlete starts believing they need these substances to make progress, and they stop prioritizing training, diet, and rest. That throws off the balance that should exist in the process, turning bodybuilding into a never-ending chase for size that just can't be sustained. The natural path, even if it's slower, is usually safer, more stable, and way more rewarding in the long run. Using less, but with real awareness, often builds a better physique than just stuffing yourself with drugs and hoping for the best. And more importantly, it protects your health and quality of life. To wrap this up responsibly, let's take a look at what science says about insulin and bodybuilding. And that brings us to an important name, Brad Schoenfeld. He's one of the leading researchers in muscle hypertrophy and has published multiple studies that bust a ton of myths around drug use in the sport. According to his findings, endogenous insulin, the kind your body naturally makes, can indeed help raise amino acid levels in the blood. That happens because under natural and well-balanced conditions, insulin acts as a facilitator. It helps shuttle nutrients, including essential amino acids, into your cells, which are the building blocks of muscle. So if you're training hard, eating well, and sleeping right, your body is already using insulin the way it should. No injections needed. Now, when it comes to exogenous insulin, the kind you inject, things change. Brad Schoenfeld and other researchers have shown that this kind of insulin can actually have the opposite effect. It may lower amino acid levels in the bloodstream. That means, instead of helping with muscle growth, injectable insulin can interfere with it. Here's why. Exogenous insulin can pull amino acids out of your bloodstream and redirect them to places in the body where they won't be used for muscle building. So your body ends up momentarily starved of the building blocks it needs. And what was supposed to be anabolic turns into a total progress killer. All of this shows just how important it is to actually understand what's happening inside your body before jumping on any internet trend. Using insulin without proper control might sound smart on the surface, but it's actually counterproductive if your goal is real hypertrophy. You could be risking your health and blocking your own gains at the same time. The message here is simple: more science, less guesswork. Before you put anything into your body, ask yourself, is this really necessary? Is it backed by research? Is it worth the risk? When it comes to using exogenous insulin purely for aesthetics, the answer from serious studies is becoming clearer and clearer, and it's a hard no. Now that you've got a clear picture of how dangerous insulin can be, it's important to remember it's not alone. When we talk about extreme risks in bodybuilding, there's a trio every athlete, especially amateurs, needs to know and respect: T3, diuretics, and insulin. These three substances, when used recklessly, can turn the pursuit of your dream physique into a real-life nightmare. T3, or triiodothyronine, is a thyroid hormone that speeds up your metabolism. Sound great, right? But when misused, it can lead to heart arrhythmias, serious muscle loss, and even heart attacks, especially during peak week, when athletes are already dehydrated and pushing their bodies to the limit. It's a compound that demands strict medical monitoring, and it was never meant for cosmetic use. Then you've got diuretics. These are used to flush out excess water and give that dry look on stage. But the problem is they also flush out vital electrolytes like potassium and sodium, causing dangerous imbalances that can lead to cardiac arrest or even collapse, either during training or right there on stage. And of course, there's insulin, which we've already broken down in detail throughout this video. A tiny mistake in dose or timing can cause severe hypoglycemia, seizures, and even sudden death. It's one of the hardest hormones to manage, even for diabetics under constant medical supervision. Now imagine messing with it in the amateur scene, with zero oversight or proper guidance. These three substances do have their place in clinical settings, and sometimes in elite sports, with full medical support. But for most people, especially those who are nowhere near the pro level, using them is unnecessary, dangerous, and more often than not, totally counterproductive. The truth is, the foundation will always be training, nutrition, and rest. Real talk, don't mess with insulin. The risk is way too high. If you're just starting out or still going the natural route, don't fall for shortcuts. They might look tempting now, but you'll end up paying for them later with your health, your life, and your peace of mind. And before we wrap up, if you're into this kind of content, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications.